Welcome back to another Orange Card, Blue Card. You all know me. I'm Sam Tate. I'm joined by David Toombs from Let's Talk UVS. And I want to jump us off really quick with something that's important to me, and that's grassroots tournament play. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to let you talk about the webcam championship that's coming up very soon, David.
Yeah, our next webcam circuit championship is September 7th. So only 3 weeks after the release of Attack on Titan. The format is going to be standard. It's going to be our first major competitive standard event post Attack on Titan. So let's see how all these attuned cards and Attack on Titan characters really shake up the meta and what we can expect. Because local qualifiers, UVS Games is encouraging local game stores to have those be Attack on Titan Spotlight rather than standard. Now, a lot of local game stores are going to play standard anyway, but it's at least being encouraged for that to be Attack on Titan Spotlight. And so this could be like one of the only major standard events pre-October for the major regionals coming up. We got October. I think the US actually goes first in season 3, where we're October 4th and 5th in Atlanta, Georgia. And so this is our webcam circuit event is going to be 1 month before that. It's going to be the best time to get some practice and to see what this new meta is like.
Yeah, I'm very excited for it. It's another one of the very few events I'm going to get to play in this year. And it's kind of funny. You mentioned it's going to be the first opportunity to play with Attack on Titan. And that seems to be I don't know, it's the most important thing, right? It's the most important like piece of news. And we're going to talk about the regional season and focus on competitive play for right now. But I'll be honest, when it comes like content creation and talking about the game right now that we're post St. Louis, and the next competitive event is Attack on Titan, it feels like that's the only thing worth talking about.
Yeah, it has me in kind of a funk too, where it's like I meant to do a deck list review video, talking about the fascinating decisions of everybody in St. Louis, but it also feels like the standard format is going to have such a huge shakeup with Attack on Titan, that I'm really just focused on Attack on Titan, but we have so much of the set left that I don't feel like I can make quality Attack on Titan content yet. But I'm also looking forward to it so much that I've not completely abandoned standard at the moment, because we still have this UK regional coming up this weekend, and I think both you and I are going to be commentating that.
Mm-hmm.
But I am kind of I've got like one eye looking this way and one eye looking this way, and that's kind of keeping me at a standstill.
We'll see. What you need to do is you need to grow a third Ghidorah head. So you can have one head look this way, one head look that way, and one head keeping your eyes straight on the prize. But yeah, I was gonna make the worst symbols video, which I still probably will. It's just between having so much going on and the fact that like attuned symbols feels like the script I wrote is gonna be completely obsolete. Like with attuned symbols coming up, everything I'm saying is like that's like about symbols just gets completely thrown out the window, at least until we see how they shake down. So that's been like a big part of it. Doing like a deck profile for a deck that you don't have an event to play it at seems kind of weird, unless if it's focused on like win your local qualifiers, up and at them, like that's cool, and people do like deck profiles in general, right? But it really this is kind of the consequence of having like one event per format, one event like per product. People had already talked about it didn't seem fair that like girl power didn't get its own event, even though the Godzilla stuff was just decks, like it wasn't like a full second set. But I'm really feeling that fatigue now, because we had one really awesome event with crazy decks doing totally cool new things, and now I have to figure out what do they look like in a world with backups. I don't get to iterate on the Elder Toguro list in any meaningful way, right? Like I don't even know if it's something that I would tech against in the future, despite it being something that if you know about it and are trying to beat that specific combo, I do have a very spicy tip later that I think will make you pretty much immune to the deck as it currently exists. But I digress. The main thing right now is, everything seems so focused on Attack on Titan, but the UK people still have a whole regional. They got invites to win and points to earn, so it seems kind of unfair to gloss over the current format. Even though UK versus has done like exclusively Attack on Titan content since it's been announced.
That's true. Yeah, you bring up a good point. And like, it, when product was coming out at a slower pace, it felt like each meta would have several events, major competitive events, and then you would see how the decks evolved. Like, oh, now we found out that this is a really good deck. Oh, and here's some good answers that you could run into that. And then you see the best decks kind of evolve over time. Whereas right now it's like, here's your one event. Now we're moving on to the next one. Now,
Hope you
now
win
it's
your
the
dice
next.
rolls.
Yeah, yeah. Now it's the next one. So it's really giving a lot of like, you have to have a lot of internal testing in order to know what to be prepared for.
And
Like you have to be anticipatory, but at the same time, um, I had never tested into that Elder deck before, and I don't know how I was gonna end up testing into that Elder deck. With,
yeah, the Elder Toguro combo was completely off my radar just because the idea of removing cards from the game, like I think I genuinely was at one point looking at Sir Night Eye with combined firepower as like a Twisting Azure deck, right on death. And I think I glossed over Elder Toguro as like, is there a Death Mill backup plan? Because I had played the Evil Mill version, right? And my brain just glossed over combined firepower because I was like, well, I don't have a way to remove cards. It doesn't seem reliable, right? So like even being a fan of the Sports Festival Champion combo back when we were doing Hulking Grimace and back when I was using Sakio's Gamble because that was the highest damage action card and stuff like that. Um, I definitely never tested against it, and I never saw any of the grind streams on Tam Cardwell's channel. I'm with the Unfun Stuff Discord, so like I get like a lot of the breakdowns, and when I can, I jump in. And for the last couple weeks, we were testing into all the different Rodan symbols. We had really cool decks, like really sick, like combo decks, like Godzilla concepts, where we had a Flash Godzilla. I think that made it onto the stream once. Like there's just all kinds of different stuff, but the main ones that we glossed over that showed up were Elder Toguro and King Ghidorah, because King Ghidorah seemed like such a worse overhaul every time I played it. And every time I watched a King Ghidorah play the game, they assembled all of the stat modifiers that turn him into a real character, on top of being able to use that enhanced commit aggressively to play like Rejuvenating Smash every turn and never get punished for it. It was honestly insane to see.
yeah, that was one that. So the week before St. Louis, my brother had ended up not being able to make it to St. Louis for family reasons, and but he was still doing team testing with us the week before, and he had just gone 6-0 at our like locals with King Ghidorah, and I had practiced against him with his King Ghidorah list quite a bit. But for that team testing, I said, "Don't play King Ghidorah, please, because nobody's going to play that in St. Louis. Can you play? Can you play your Toga 3 list so that we can get real practice?"
Oh man. Hey,
And it turns out I was 100% wrong. Like it should have just like, hey, he went 6-0 at this at locals. Maybe this is something we need to be prepared for.
that's so it's so crazy, isn't it? Like it's the main thing when I played him was I felt like I was struggling to find stats in despite, and I said rejuvenating earlier, the other symbols did fine, right? He had non-rejuvenating symbols with their own perks. Like every symbol has its own uniqueness that is really good, but I would struggle to find stats because I would draw my hand, right? And my only high block is I think it's Galactic Ambition. No, it's Galactic Emperor, whichever one is the +1 or -1 damage. I'm pretty sure it's like a +2 high block, right? I might be tripping, but the point is whatever the stat pumper was like my only block on that zone. And I was like, well, I have to hold this, right? And if my opponent doesn't play an attack and I drop my hand and I don't have another high block, I'm never playing the stat pumper card. And that was like, it was just like this weird thing where I could never afford to get enough of them out. You know, I didn't figure out the defense in a way that felt meaningful. I've tested a ton against Biakos, and you know, I'm sure you've talked to TC about his Byakko list. He is confident that any long game goes to a Byakko because the stage just gets flipped. You know, he's on the 4 tutoring Kirishima, and so by the time he goes through 30 cards of the deck, you know, you will have flipped at least one per every attack, plus probably 4 more from foundation effects, you know, that just kind of randomly happen as you're playing the game. So, you know, an 8-card stage is flipped by turn 3. So, you know, I didn't feel very confident in playing a 6-hander who can't play actions from a different zone, unlike Overhaul, because you like need a barrier shield against the Elder Toguro combo, which again we wouldn't have known about anyways. But like Thunderous War is insane right now and definitely puts you on have a speed reset. And you know, as an anecdote, I played the Travis Tangeman list at a local qualifier, and 2 different people were playing Byakkos, and before the tournament, I tested against them because I thought it was like the worst matchup, and it was. It was like so unplayable because Thunderous War plus the damage pump from Byakko makes the sequencing for the swap like almost never possible, like never feasible. So, you know, it was one of those things where you really got rewarded for bringing a deck that people weren't testing against to this tournament in St. Louis, which is nice to see. It's nice to see that kind of thing get paid off, right? Because I also felt like people were aware of Amajiki, but I don't know like what tech they had for Amajiki. Like it doesn't feel like anything that counts as anti Amajiki card really does anything to him.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of value in St. Louis of being having a deck that people weren't ready for, like that Elder deck coming out of nowhere. But you're right, speed resets very important right now. And the Elder deck, it's not like there's no answers. Like I feel like everybody's like, okay, that deck won. We have to ban something now. But I don't think you really have to. I think there's actually a lot of interplay into the deck. Um, I didn't feel like our matchup when I faced Travis, I didn't feel like it was unfair at all.
Right.
We went 75 minutes and it was maybe the most fun round I played the entire weekend.
I'll say
I'm
this.
sure the
I'll say
judge.
one thing. I'll say one thing about like the fairness of the deck. There is from a design level, like from the ground level up, you could make the argument that the fact that all of the major combo pieces can come from the discard pile, you know, the fact that you don't have to draw the card to even do any part of the combo technically. You know, I guess you have to build the sports festival for like the true combo, but we saw Travis,
Yeah.
and in people's deck reports, he was doing it without sports festival champ. You know, he was just like actually milling, you know, all the avoiding conflicts and getting all the damage, right? So, I will the only thing that seems antithetical to gameplay to me is that you can do everything from the discard pile theoretically. So that is kind of annoying when it's like, well, you didn't even have to draw it. But at the same time, I'm with you. There's so many different things that, having played it, there's so many different normal things that decks are already doing. Like game 1 in the LC, I played against an Amajiki, and they just played a Deception Dagger and removed my Luna Ring. Game 1, like turn 1, turn 2, whatever, going first, they just get to attack first. And so for the rest of the game, I had to do my full combo into a Cape of No Return because I know that if I'm ever going to win this game, I have to just play through it. And it made game 1 take forever and I lost, you know? And then game 2, like the same thing happened, but I sided in more Luna Rings. And then I ended up winning by playing True 100% Unleashed into the Twisting combo into True 100% Unleashed. And that's like a thing any deck can do.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the sports
That
festival
sounds like a
swap on
normal
the
deck, not like a six attack deck. I agree that like my concern is not necessarily the Elder deck and specifically, it's the trend of playing from our discard piles more. That Godzilla really ramped up with like combined firepower, and then Attack on Titan is going to ramp up even more when every character with death on it gets access to risky encounter and can form attack from their discard pile, and they don't have to draw into attacks anymore. Um, so that's just something that I think is going to be here to stay going forward, is added consistency from the discard pile.
so
Even
theoretically, just to talk about like where this is important in our game, would you feel any better or any different if those same cards were replaced with cards that search your deck for something?
um I hate those.
Right.
I hate
So
shuffling a deck again and then
so
having your opponent cut it. Plus our discard piles, I feel like Universes, you fill up your discard piles so fast that it's fun to use that as
right. So
where you grab things from.
I agree that like playing from the discard pile is starting to become like playing from your stage was for like a couple of good and earth symbol characters for a while there. But the alternative, the reason why we dig so, the point is the reason why we dig so much into the discarding universes is because you lose so many cards from your deck so fast, anyways, that searching your deck would be less reliable most of the time and take long because you have to shuffle. But it's like you have to be able to grab cards from other zones. Where else do you grab them from, right? You look at Momo, you look at Back Alley Haymaker, you look at almost every card that like tutors a face up momentum is grabbing from the discard pile, right? So it's like where else would you get them from? And if you play other card games, you know, Star Wars Unlimited has like very few cards in general, and they do like a look at the top X and put them on the bottom. That's the only thing I hate more than searching a deck, because it's like just let me search it. Don't give me a chance to whiff. So like that's become a new trend, is like the reveal the top cards, pick one, put them on the bottom. So you don't have to shuffle the deck. You just have to shuffle like four cards randomly or whatever it is. But you know, I'm that's the trend I'm waiting to see. I'm waiting to see cards that instead of drawing me three cards or whatever, they let me look at four of them and pick one to add to my hand.
You want that to come to Universes?
I don't know if I want that. I just think that like if you can't, I'm saying if you can't go to the discard pile to tutor cards, the only other options you have, right, are like tutor from Momentum, which is super, or like a way smaller resource. You can search the deck, or you can like they call it scrying in Magic, where you look at the top X cards and then you can put them on the bottom and or on the top. So that way you don't have to draw them, right?
Right.
You don't have to go through them. Star Wars Unlimited and I think One Piece do a lot of like a lot of Bandai games do like look at the top X cards, and X could be anywhere from 3 to 10. Pick out a card that's like a certain keyword, because everything is typal in those games. It's all like you're playing this keyword deck, right? And then you shuffle the other cards and put them on the bottom. So it's like I think we're gonna end up with cards. We had one called Canine Tracer, where you like name a card, reveal the top four. If you named the right card, put it in your hand and put the rest on the bottom. I think we'll see more cards like that where it's just like, you know, Jiro the top of your deck and then pick a card and put the rest on the bottom instead of on top.
Yeah, I could see that. I just think UVS gets dangerous anytime you get some sort of second hand. Like the characters playing from their stage, like Overhaul. And then we saw, Kirishima 1 and Kirishima 2 both get eroded because they were too consistent. Or you've got characters playing from their momentum. Um,
Hardened
like
Jab was a
Amajiki almost
menace the
feels like he gets
entire
this whole
time.
third. What's that?
I was saying Hardened Jab was a menace the entire time it was legal.
Yeah, yeah. You could say that for a lot of MHA set one cards.
Yeah.
Um, but anytime you're getting to selectively pick up resources, uh, it feels very, very strong in universes, whereas other universes characters need to draw into it. And then it feels like if you're too consistent with grabbing a resource, either from your stage, momentum, or discard pile, then it's kind of antithetical to like the fundamental of universes, which is different characters have different hand sizes. You draw up to this hand size, you have to sculpt into a winning hand. Yeah, so that kind of worries me. Um, and it might just be because we're having so much product getting released that because we're on such a fast-paced product release schedule, it's inevitable that we're going to end up with broken combos all over the place.
Now that's possible. With the accelerated releases, the upside to that I could think of is maybe standard is like the non-rotating format, but maybe we get like other additional formats that break it down. And right now it looks like Spotlight is to sort of fill that role. But there's only going to be two IPs you could realistically do it with to begin with, and that's MHA with all of its sets, and Attack on Titan when set 2 comes out, because they're kind of playing catch up with like the 300 card set or whatever, right? So Spotlight might do that, might become like the preferred format because of what you're talking about, where it's like standard now is just like this massive format with like double jab pummel and walk the dog in it, you know, like cards that are just like so far apart from like remember how annoying double jab pummel was, and now it's just like strictly unplayable. You just block it, and it's because drawing two cards and discarding two cards is not making your deck more consistent. It's not some like it's now at the point where I block double jab pummels because it's probably going to mess up my opponent's checks that they just put on top of their deck.
And it encourages them to play another attack, which is going to hurt their build turn at the end of it.
Right. Also, barrier
Although
shield hoses it.
I am playing double jab pummel and Armin Scared Strategist.
This is what I'm talking about. You're the problem, David. This is what I'm talking about.
Because when you have a character who's picking up from his stage every attack, and you play a couple lightning rods, and then you build down some attacks with lightning rod, and then you play some electric moths, double jab pummels, finish off with the falling skies. You're giving 2/2 to everything. He can do some more crimes.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be a lot of characters that will have a lot of inertia. A lot of string decks seem very possible, which is why it's very interesting to me that there is such an emphasis on these high difficulty, sort of high rarity attacks that have like all this value of shifting and transforming. Yet at the same time, right now it looks like the best characters are just going to be the ones that are clearing their card pool and drawing the most cards. So,
which has been this best strategy for 2 years now.
Which is how you used to beat Momo, right? You beat Momo by having the absolute god hand nuts every single time of just 7+ attacks, and they can't block them all, and then they can't punish you hard enough because they don't have +3 damage on every move or something. So,
By the way, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Can I jump? Oh, just on what you're talking about how the strategy seems to be clearing. One for all full cowling, 8% falling roundhouse. The 3 high 4 that gets +1/+1 for every card cleared this turn. It's up to $20 on TCG Player right now.
Really?
So, because Mikasa plays it so well. And so you can already tell that Mikasa is going to run the format because everybody's just buying that card out.
As someone whose YouTube channel is named Ace Maneuver, I'm a big fan. I gotta say. But at the same time, it is, I don't know, it is a little startling. Like, one of the reasons I hate like the card pool clearing stuff being so common, I guess, was that it was supposed to be the air symbols thing. And air symbol always got like garbage cards because clearing the card pool was so strong. And if you look back at any cards that like had the air symbol that were busted, they all clear the card pool and are not bad. You know what I mean? Like they're just like a normally good attack, and it's just so funny that for like now we're gonna get all these busted air cards that clear the card pool, and they're gonna be like so overwhelmingly good at it that it's not special anymore. You know, it used to be kind of special when you could like put that strategy together. Characters that like focused on that strategy in the past were, you know, handicapped. They weren't very good. They had high costs to balance things out, and you know, again, the best example is like a card called Shield Ram, which originally was just a 4 difficulty 3 high for 4 combo attack that had stun 1, and when it resolves, the combo enhance was when it resolves, discard it from the card pool, draw a card. And that would be like insane by today's standards. And it was very good in like specific decks that had lots of other card draw, because you were just trying to chain them all together and then play your kill turn. But there was so much interaction because of the combo keyword, right? You can interact with the first attack, you can interact with the keyword, you can disrupt it by canceling the card draw. It would stop it from clearing the card pool. And Shield Ram didn't combo itself. Every card that combos and MHA combos itself or it doesn't get played, right? So you even with the pinnacle of card pool clearing in the past, it was like a hoop that you had to jump through, and if they survived your Shield Ram turn, your deck was like gassed out. You were never going to have a turn anywhere close to as good as the turn where you played 3 Shield Rams, and you know they could probably wall you out after that. Mikasa is just going to play all the best attacks and, you know, like draw cards before the enhance step, and I'm not even looking at full cowling. I can play her with flash attacks. She has 2 responses on her. We're going to beat the hell out of a Rodan, bro.
Yeah, that's true. The other card I'm thinking about too is Luna Teharis. I wonder how much that price has jumped to.
Hell yeah. If it's not a flash, it's a throw. I'm here for that game plan.
Yeah, it's up to $32. It just becomes like a 3 div pretty quickly, and then you're just slamming speed on it.
Mikasa's not keyword gated at all, is she?
No.
That's wild. That's wild that Reese was locked to only punches and was so much worse. And yet Reese was like a fan favorite.
Attack on Titan to me is like, I feel like we're back to MHA set 1.
Yeah.
In some instances of like, we have a very powerful card pool clearing character like Asui 1. We have
he gives the right stats too. That's huge.
Yeah, both Armins are picking up from their stage at a pretty good rate, like the Kirishimas. We have these crazy 6-handers. Now we get this destruction character, Reiner, that seems to be very, very consistent and just obliterating your stage. We got Bertholdt being this 35 health character, adding everything to momentum. And then just we have these very, very powerful characters coming out. And anyway, I'm wondering if they're just going to dominate the meta for a long time, similar to how MHA Set 1 characters did. And we had, like, MHA Set 1 had the most cards banned in it by far compared to any other set, other than, like, ironically, Heroes Clash has had quite a bit banned.
Yeah, because it got One with Nature and Ojiro.
Yeah, and it had Snack Time, and then Twisting Azure Inferno might get banned this next month.
One with Nature and Snack Time were in the same set, huh?
Yeah.
That's wild.
I felt like I was one of the only people saying that Snack Time should be hit before One with Nature.
Ooh, I didn't think of it before, but when they got rid of One with Nature, I rolled my eyes and said, we're all just going to play Snack Time instead. It's a 1 diff and has a deadlock. Like, it's not worse. You know, it's just, you were going to go from like 3 One with Nature, like 2 Snack Time, to just getting like 4 Snack Time and still you just have to find damage. Oh no. So it didn't quite come to fruition immediately, but eventually Snack Time did have to go. And it just took, getting that much card draw. Like Ojiro didn't need the card draw when he was using One with Nature because he was looping an attack, right? So once we hit critical mass on, I can throw these cards away. So I think as far as the characters go, I think they learned their lesson, and I think more likely than those characters dominating forever, they will probably just power creep them if they have to. I think they will just like make things, at least character wise, stronger than them if they have to, which is kind of a scary thought, but I do think it is preferable to power creep cards a little bit than it is to just like blanket ban stuff. As pro ban as I am, like obviously you can't ban an entire set's worth of characters. But you do have to find a way to like power things back down, and games that use like a once per turn resource have like a really easy way of doing that. They just change what turn you play the game on. If stuff is really aggressively too good on turns 1, 2, and 3, then you just make cards that like stall the game on 1, 2, and 3, and then decks have to play the cards that are good on 4, 5, and 6, right? The cards that come down on 4, 5, and 6 will just dominate all the little stuff, no matter how much little stuff you have. So it's like an easy way to balance things. I don't know how you do that in this game, right? Like in this game, when you talk about us going back to like towards set one, you're right as far as like the design style, but I think the difference between what was really aggravating about set one characters for so long was there was like nothing that interacted with them at a high level. Now we have cards like Cape of No Return, we have cards like Barrier Shield, basically all the powerful defensive stuff that like we think every deck should have at least in a sideboard somewhere. It goes a long way. It goes a very long way to like bridging the gap between two characters. Having like two characters where one is like slightly better than the other, but you didn't draw the barrier shield and they did, is like a way bigger difference than set one where it's like, okay, Momo just plays this attack better than everyone. There's nothing you can do, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. But I'm still worried because I don't know how you get more powerful than I don't know how you get better than like Mikasa and Reiner and Bertholdt. Like, if we need to power creep even from here, I don't even know where that is. These already seem crazy to me.
So, like an easy example, the easiest way to do stuff is to print like silver bullet type cards. Like I think we're one or two sets away from seeing a card of some type that you can block with or respond defensively with, and while it is in the card pool, your rival cannot clear cards from their card pool due to effects. Maybe not due to effects. They might leave a loophole for like cost clearing. You really can't ever say how they're gonna word a card. I mean, just look at Disarming Glance. We're not really sure where where the intention lies on Disarming Glance, right? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how it will be worded, but I wouldn't be surprised if by the first product that is released next year, if we don't have a card that just says no card pool clearing for the whole turn in some capacity, whether or not you have to like protect it or remove the card for the whole turn, whatever, I think we'll have it.
Yeah, I was looking at cards that stop card pool clearing, and there's only two foundations right now. You got Grape Buckler, I think,
Which they
from
can
Girl
cancel.
Power. Yeah, it says enhance flip. This attack can't leave the card pool or something like that. And then
Your
there's
rival
the
can
other
discard
one.
a momentum to. It has a built-in cancel clause though, so it's like
Yeah,
hardly
yeah, yeah. They can
usable.
discard a momentum, but
Mm.
Mikasa won't have a momentum on turn two. It's okay, and
I don't know about that.
they will on turn three.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's another one that you can remove it while playable while committed. It's like beauty. I can't remember the
Beauty
name, but
pageant contestant.
yeah, yeah. You can. So like, there's two things, but you're right. Maybe in exchange for
Well,
characters being more powerful, we get more cards that can interact with characters. Like we stop seeing the non-character effect clause as much. If you can like for example, Waylay, they just gave us Waylay, which is like you're not going to play that card most of the time, but then it's just going to dunk on Amajiki.
it it'll force Amajikis to like spend their momentum. I don't know. I guess for that one turn, if Amajikis are really relying on their once per turn to save them, or like some momentum effect, but I think that
Because they
one's
got their broken psyches. You turn off all the broken psyches and you turn off their once per turn.
it's weird. I just don't even use Broken Psyche in my Amajiki list. We talked about that before. I'm just like not into it. Yeah, I think that one's maybe a little like overblown, but it is a good example. It's a good example because a lot of times when it comes to card games, you don't actually have to provide a solution to a problem. You just have to make people think you did. And there's quite a few stories in card games where a card or a combo that people thought was effectively dead was still just good enough even after being nerfed. In our game, like Quan Chi is a good example. Um, Toguro still topped the regional with basically the same deck that people were running the whole time, even after being errated. So like, and I know Kevin Brobrick has like brewed on him a little bit, and there is like now that he has a cost, there's like different synergies that you can run with him. So it's not strictly better than being free, but it does open up some unique game plans. So there are times where people sleep on a strategy because it's been errated or nerfed in some way. But if people aren't teching for it, it might still just be like really good. So if just like we were talking about with St. Louis, if you think Amajiki's dead because of this card in sideboards, then why would people cite it if the Amajiki's so dead? Just
That's a
play
good point.
Amajiki, bro.
When I first started playing Universus, I started with Mount Lady 1 with this
Mm.
turbo build Mount Ladies, get momentum. And then I was looking through cards because I was taking a long time to get up to speed on every single card. And after like 3 or 4 weeks of playing, I came on UVS Ultra, I came across Maneuvering Laser, which says if this attack is not blocked, discard your rival's entire momentum. And I thought, oh my gosh, Mount Late, like I can't play a momentum. I can't do like this momentum strategy because
uh,
people are obviously going to be playing their maneuvering lasers. And turns out that I've never seen that card played one time in any tournament setting ever.
I think I played it at a local once. Exactly one time. Uh, that card is not the sauce. The card I want back to deal with Amajiki strategies is the what's the exploding pride? The 4 low for 3 that just burns you for each of your momentum. I think there was a time where Amajiki players would be like, okay, I think 4 is enough. 4 is like enough that I don't have to block the exploding pride, but won't like get absolutely dumpstered by it. And that's the card I want back because it has like this damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of a thing where if I draw multiple exploding prides, you should block the first one. And I think that's a very funny gameplay interaction.
Hmm. Yeah, this has me feeling some hope for Jiki. Maybe just nobody plays Waylay.
Yeah, or like you'll just dodge the people who do. I don't know. There's so many decks out there that have like an obvious linchpin to their strategy where like for example, if we were all really worried about Toga 3, you really can play Toru 2. And Toru 2, I mentioned earlier I had a spicy tip for the what you call it, the Elder Toguro deck, right? So Toru 2 is good on the good symbol in a really weird way against both the Elder Toguro sort of strategy and the Toga 3 strategy because she bounces your first attack, right? So number one, Toga 3, they're so similar names, Toru and Toga.
You
Toga
miss your 3-2.
Yeah, Toga will never get the 3-2, which is like kind of like an obvious thing everyone knows about. But Toru 2 has access to a card right now that everyone is sleeping on called Spirit Detective. And Spirit Detective says when you play your second copy of an attack on the turn, you can commit Spirit Detective so it's reusable and seal the attack. So if the Elder Togros try to play the Twisting Azure and you bounce it, the second Twisting Azure is going to get sealed. And then it's never going to get any of that bonus damage for playing all of those actions, which is not like a hard answer, but you got to imagine that it makes doing like a one shot combo like pretty much impossible. So if we were really all worried about like any one specific deck, like just sideboarding Toru 2 with some Spirit Detectives into like any generic strategy on the good symbol, which good has been like the king of generic value strategies the entire time. It's just sometimes you pick like one keyword, because your character cares about punches or weapons, but like the foundations are all just the good ones, right? So there's all kinds of stuff like that you can do if you're worried about exactly one strategy, and then you'll never, ever, ever fight that one strategy in a tournament because that's just how the game goes.
Michael on our team was going to play Toru 2 in St. Louis, but he had, I think his mom was had to go to the hospital like just a couple days before, and so he had to stay back.
That
But
sucks.
he was convinced that, like, hey, if Toga 3 is going to be the most represented character, Toru just kind of dunks on her.
Yeah, she makes it tough. Now, I will say, bouncing the Toga attack, they do get to stun you an additional time, but that's worth it for the 3 speed. Stun one versus 3 speed is kind of obvious. Also, I think Toga has like one or two attacks that do care about being the first one themselves, and they're the ones that like draw cards. So they're the ones that are like I see mostly getting played at my locals. I don't think I put them in my Toga list, but I prefer the life version.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I think we had I think it's fair to say that the U.S. regional was very, very different than the Oceania regional. The U.S. top four was two King Ghidorahs, an Elder, and a Hawks. And then the Oceania top four was uh Ochako 4, two Godzillas, and a Younger.
Yeah, yeah, it was very
They
very
were like,
different.
yeah, they were very, very different events, and what ended up doing well. In the US, it ended up being the, I won't say like annoying decks, but that's the best way I could describe King Ghidorah. Like, I think people get annoyed at Travis's deck unfairly,
It's so
when
different.
I
That's
think it's
all.
actually very interesting. It's just that because it's being perceived as something that should not be able to be done, that people don't like it. But the King Ghidorah decks, and I've play tested against my brother's King Ghidorah quite a few times. I hate play testing against it. I just don't like it. It's
It's
not
like
a
the
fun.
worst. It's like the worst part of fighting overall, but like the damage is morphic, right? Like his health pool is so not. It's so misleading. Is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I would have to string out sometimes 5 attacks to get through one head.
Yeah, like
It
it's
was just nuts, and then I would have to hope that he just, like, doesn't draw much gas on his turn because I committed out so hard to get one head down.
I wish I'd
that
asked.
I
Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, so I just ended up, a lot of times asking Patrick, "Can I play something else? Can I play against something else?" Um, and now seeing it do really well actually kind of scares me because, and maybe it shouldn't scare me because maybe it's cool, but it just seems to drag games out quite a bit.
Yeah,
A lot of the Ghidorah games were going to time. I had a teammate, Ross Aubrey, who's was playing Bionic Menace, and he started St. Louis 3-0. Uh, and then in his last 5 rounds, he played 3 King Ghidorahs.
and they all tied.
Yeah, and he tied 2 of them and lost to one.
Oh,
And so he ends up finishing the tournament 4-1-3. or something like that, and doesn't make it into tops. Uh, and it just ran into 3 Ghidorah matchups that all went to time. It's very difficult for Bionic not to mill out and to get through
Yeah.
Ghidorah. So you have to really time that out. So just terrible luck on his part. If he doesn't, if he only gets matched up into 1 or 2 Ghidorahs, I think he makes top cuts. But he got matched into the trifecta of all the Ghidorahs that made top cuts.
Yeah, it's one of those things where so many things change in a turn when you're fighting Ghidorah, because against any other character, -1 damage suddenly, like, doesn't change much. It just means you have to deal 1 more damage. But against King Ghidorah, it means you have to initiate a whole nother attack. And so you're like translating the health pool into card advantage, right? You're translating like your health total into like a minimum number of cards to be played. And I think that that's cool and interesting. Um, and I love the thematic of like the 3 heads, because he is like, part of his lore, I guess, right, is that he like does regenerate, and that like you have to kill all 3 of them and stuff like that. I think in retrospect, it should have been something more like you have to kill all 3 heads in 1 turn, but he has like 5 health. So he has to literally block everything. Because the biggest thing that was really concerning for me is the amount of damage reduction he gets to kind of take advantage of. Obviously, he has his own card, which is like a +1 or -1 on a 2 diff, which seems fair at face value. But then you look at like all the different, like, he has access to spooky on 2 different symbols, so he can like zero out stuff. He has access to airy on one of his symbols, so that's like a whole nother counter. That's like a whole nother head that he has. Like, there's just so many little things where you block with a rejuve and you live at 1 because you gained 2 and then took half, and like your math is just completely like borked up. Like barrier shield is just so good in him, even though it's not like something he can play from another zone like the Chisakai characters. Like, it slows the game down because things change. New information is presented to you so often, and that's something I didn't get a lot in my testing. I'm not like trying to brag because I didn't play against Ben Lambright's version at all, or him playing it, but I played against Andrew Porat after St. Louis, and he was like, I didn't know nothing about this King Ghidorah list, let me like test it. And I played like his Rodan list, except I added 2 combined firepower, and like I had no trouble beating it, and it didn't take us an hour to play a game. Obviously, we're playing at home on TTS, not in a tournament setting and stuff. But like, I don't know what it is. Like, you watch the King Ghidorahs on stream, and they have like the perfect hand and the perfect sequencing. And let's talk about like how King Ghidorah is like the perfect character to fight a one-shot OTK combo. He's either the best or the worst, because you might think he might be the worst because you don't actually need Sports Festival. You can just do the swap and make it unblockably fast, and you don't need as much damage. That might be a factor that makes it easier, but I mean, you have to do it 3 times, which gives King Ghidorah plenty of time to set up, and that's been the big issue, right? Is like getting set up in him has not felt good in any of the testing I've done. I kill them before they get set up very often in testing, and then you watch the stream games, and like people don't put together a 3 attack turn against them ever. It never happens.
I need to go back and watch. I'll be honest, I have not gone back and watched the stream.
Yeah, well, and it's not because people don't have it, right? It's because once they zero out your first 2 attacks, you realize that the likelihood of even getting a head counter is completely gone. And if you overextend, they have access to Tri-Gravity Beam. So the game slows down because you can't ever overextend, and they can't ever overextend, because I think King Ghidorah is that fragile, right? I think King Ghidorah is like, that concerned about the counters. So it's 2 decks that are like never taking any risk. And if you watch the way Zach plays King Ghidorah on stream. I can't remember who he play. I think he plays it against the Hawks in Top Cuts. I can't remember, but he gets like kind of bulldozed just because he checks bad, and he's like forced to play. Excuse me. He's like forced to play attacks. He's like trying to progress to the game state, and he just like checks bad, and like the whole character crumbles once every single turn. Ryan's just like, all right, here's like a 10 mid 10 Hawk's Feather. I put everything into this. If you block it, I'm killing you from full, right? Like if you tap out as Ghidorah, it's not that hard to deal 30. But so he just has to lose one counter, and then the game continues. And then Ryan has to like get back to a point where he can pump one attack to like one shot him or force him to commit out. And that doesn't happen for 3 or 4 more turns, you know? So it's very, very weird, but I think while the King Ghidorahs have access to all these amazing control pieces, I do think that they're like in this weird, it's like a weird form of aggro where they will always be able to out aggro you, right? Like if you ever leave the opening, they will always have the capital, like as long as they draw that one attack, you know, as long as they draw you know, any amount of gas, right? They get to go select the perfect attack. And we saw that, I think I mentioned it in my one video I've done since St. Louis, where Pippa holds like 3 cards, 4 cards or whatever, and, you know, doesn't block the first 2 weenie attacks, and then gets deleted by Tri-Gravity beams. You know, it's like a triple Tri-Gravity. There was a triple Tri-Gravity at some point, and it was super hype, but also like, what the hell are you supposed to do, you know? And then the next game, Pippa's like, okay, well, I'm going to breaker 4 you on the first attack and use all my cards in hand. And so the Ghidorah deck just goes and plays a 16 damage powerful move. Like, you never get to take any risk against Ghidorah.
Yeah, you have to be very purposeful with each of your attacks. Like, you know, you can't just waste you can't just play, okay, I drew 2 attacks, I'll play both of my attacks against Ghidorah. You have to sculpt into like, okay, I've got 5 or 6 attacks and I can take down multiple heads. Like if you can't kill a head, you probably just shouldn't be attacking.
Yeah, that's why that's exactly it. That's 100% it. That's why the game slows down, because you start with your hand and you go, I can probably take a head with this, and then they play like Barrier Shield, Spooky your first attack, Breaker 2 your second attack, and then you're looking at your hand and you're like, all right, well, there's no way I'm taking a head. And now your sculpt is messed up, you know, your attack hand is broken, and your build is like not going to be super impressive. Why? Because Tri-Gravity Beam is waiting in the discard pile to completely fuck up your hand. So like it's, you know, it's a really well constructed deck. It's, you know, utilizing what makes the character like unique in such a great way. And yet I 100% agree that like it's a little too cumbersome. I don't know how else to put it. I think honestly at the end of the day, I think the truest answer is judges need to be like, you know, at least on stream games, to go, hey, you need to make a decision, because I still believe the root of the problem is people not watching the clock, and they just play at like a generally normally slow rate.
I could agree with that.
You know, I had people complain about slow play happening to them after the fact at St. Louis, and it's how it goes. I don't know how else to describe it, you know. I ran into an issue. I actually have the story in Discord because I was telling the story. I'll paraphrase it though for sure. But I was at my local qualifiers, and I was playing the Elder Toguro list. Now I had sent over a bunch of changes, but I copied Travis's list to make changes. And I sent it to my friend to like be like, hey, I need to borrow these cards, and they didn't like read the changes. They just read copy of that list and brought that list. So like I wanted to play 4 Button Collector and like Falling Heel Strike to like draw a million cards and just keep like unflipping the Button Collectors. And like some other tech pieces, because I do think the deck would have to evolve. And it shows because I did not get like any easy victories in that local qualifier because everyone knew what the deck was doing. You know, I even had like a super bad beat against a Byaku who went down to one card in hand, and I'm like, well, it's definitely a referee jury, and I've got Showdown in hand. But I have to hit him 2 times. I have to do, you know, for 38, I have to hit him twice. And he does Ultra Regen on the first hit, and he draws a second jury. So, like, I cancel the first one and still lose to the raw draw, right? So, like, the deck has all kinds of, like, you know, I just didn't have Sports Festival champ for like 10 turns, and it's going to get flipped anyways, right? Anyways, but the real story was um, I was playing the Elder Toguro list, and I'm playing against Toga 3. And the Toga 3 player is like a new player. You know, he's been playing for like since Level Up Expo, since the Vegas Regional. So, like, not super new, but not, you know, long term player. And he's playing Toga 3, but he's like, I don't think he's played Toga 3 before. He just really likes aggro decks and is like moving on to a better aggro deck than like Bash and Wolfwood, you know, because those are the only decks I saw him play before. So, like, there's a bit of a learning curve. He's like forgetting to respond with Toga, and I'm like thinking in my head, like, I should really like remind him because he's, you know, a newer player. Oh, my light just went out. And you know, at the same time, I'm looking at my hand, and I'm like, if I remind him to stun me, I'm just fucking dead. Like, I'm just so dead. Like, so there, I think he missed a stun or two early on, but like, you know, once he remembered it, he like never forgot it again. So I didn't feel too bad. He only forgot it like once, I think, in the whole tournament. But like, you know, at still that very first stun, I'm like doing the math, like I'm super dead. Like, you know, it's that slim. Like the margins for this deck were that slim.
I want to help new player. I want to also win this event.
I want the playmat. Yeah, like I also I don't think I'm qualified for Nats yet. I should by just playing in my local qualifiers, but I don't know. So, you know, I that was the first instance where I'm like, I don't know if I'm being that guy yet. But what ends up happening is we get to a point where I'm like, hey, Judge, TO, whatever, how much time is left in the round? And we're in game 1. And he said there's 21 minutes left. We have played 3 turns. I have resolved 1 attack with 1 enhance on it and dealt 4 damage because it was a Twisting Azure that I put nothing into and, like, you know, was trying to bait out like a cape or something, you know, and he didn't bite. And I'm at like 10 for, you know, after turn 2, and it's the end of turn 3 when we have 21 minutes, and I'm like, okay, I dropped my hand. I still don't have Sports Festival champ. I build like 3 or 4 because I have like no foundations because I'm turboing them away with Immortal, and it goes over to his turn. And by now, I don't remember how I know, but I know he's got Walk the Dogs. He's added 1 to his hand for sure, and I've been destroying all my foundations. And he just says, fuck it, and starts playing Walk the Dogs on 7s and 8s and shit, because I will not have committed foundations. And he has a turn that lasts like 14 minutes, and it's 3 or 4 attacks. And we get to a point where I am completely committed out. You know, the judge is like, there's 7 minutes left, you know? And this might have been, yeah, and so this might have been game 2. I might be wrong. It might not have been game 1. It might have been game 2. But game 1 ended with like 21 minutes left, and then we went into a game 2. So this is like turn 3 of game 2, right? And then we have a turn that's like, you know, the first 2 turns are just like really fast, and then the second turn is like legit like 10, 13 minutes. And we get to a point where I'm completely committed out. He's like committed out with like +1 to his check from Crowd Darling and like a character up. And he goes through his whole hand, and he does the table tap math, and then he goes through his whole hand again, and he does the table tap math with like 2 different cards. It's very clear he's looking at 2 different cards. And then he picks up his discard pile, and I'm like, there's no way he passes a 4-diff with his character ready. You know, he hasn't done Toga's response, but like, there's no way he's playing 2 cards. So I don't know why, you know, what he's looking for like attack counts to check, you know, the likelihood of checking a 5. And then he goes back to his hand and he taps the table again. And I'm like, bro, at this point, you are officially slow rolling me, right? And so
Yeah.
he then goes to play an attack that I think could only pass on a 6. I think it's another walk the dog or something, you know? And it just was like a thing that didn't really make too much sense to me. But the thing that, and I end up winning game 2, and then we like roll off for like a game 3 or something, like, because there's like no time and there's no reason to tie at a local. And so we we get through the whole tournament, and after the tournament he says, hey, it's not like your fault or anything, but like, when you said that to me, I felt pressured to play that attack, and I think I would have just won if I had played a Cape of No Return, because you had already cycled your Luna Tiaras or your Luna arc or whatever, which I had cited in Luna arcs, I'm pretty sure. I can't remember all the
Yeah.
details at this point. I don't think it was game 1. I'm pretty sure it was game 2 now. But I remember thinking to myself, like, great, I did it. I'm that guy now. Everyone says I don't want to be that guy, but like tells you to play faster, but like I did. And immediately, the one time I do, I have someone telling me, hey, you like pressured me into throwing that game. And it's like, I don't know what to tell you, man. We did not finish 3 games in an hour with like the fastest deck in the format. You know what I mean? Um, but on top of that, there was no shot he could have passed a Cape of No Return. He had too many cards in his card pool. He doesn't get the plus
Yeah,
one to
I
the check
think
to play the Cape.
yeah, there has to be something to be said for you don't just get all the time in the world to make the right decision.
Right.
You have to play within a reasonable amount of time, and that is going to lead to misplays a lot because you had to make a decision in 20 seconds instead of 5 minutes. It's zero fun playing chess with someone who just stares at the board for an hour every move, and then it's like, look, both you and me aren't grandmasters. You're not going to make the right move. um,
Right. You're
just
gambling. That's my main thing is you're gambling anyways, right? It's a luck based thing. Sometimes
yeah.
I guess there's like always a right answer, but like the majority of the time there's no guaranteed right answer anyways. So I feel like if you're taking a chance, you should get even less time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know TC was a little TC finished in 17th or 18th place in St. Louis with a 5-1-2 record, just bubbled out based on tiebreakers. But in one of his rounds, he tied because he was playing a newer player and he was helping them along the
Right.
game. And so he was helping them, and then he lost in like I think like the final minutes of game two, and then just isn't able to make it in time. But he's like, I wanted to be nice, but I also feel like I was punished for being nice.
I've felt that way before at my infamous phone call story during a webcam event where it's like, I mean, I don't want to be a dick anyways, but I also think I'm going to win this game. And then I totally didn't win game 1 with no time left. And it was like, oh, that feels bad, you know? So it's just, it's super tough. And, again, I do the same things, you know what I mean? Like, I am guilty of this stuff too, where it's like, I can't complain after the fact. You just can't. Because at the time, so the biggest thing I should mention, right, is when we first asked the judge and he's like, there's 21 minutes left in the round, I was surprised because it didn't feel like it. That's the big thing. No one ever admits, but it never feels like it took that long. That's how it happens in the first place. And that's why it's your responsibility as a player to get that time checked and like keep track of it yourself. You can like make a complaint that the venue doesn't have a timer on the wall, but you can put your phone in airplane mode and start a 1 hour timer. Everybody's got a phone at the venue, and if your phone's not charged and can't do it, that still falls on you. You know what I mean? Like there is a
Yeah.
level of accountability that you have to take, and if it means you have to put extra effort into this, then you have to put extra effort into it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's when I when I go back and watch myself play on TTS and like testing and things, things that in the moment felt like it took me 10 seconds to do, when I watch back it took me 2 minutes to do. to calculate something. And I know I was playing pretty slow against Travis in our Top Cut match, which is maybe the reason it went, 75, 80 minutes that we ended up taking.
Oh, did
But
you guys lose to the timeout rule too?
no, he beat me before we got to the
Okay.
end of 90 minutes.
Okay.
But in like game one, he has this massive wall, triple Knots Flask,
Oh,
and League of Villains to cancel and enhance. I've got like
you love to see
six
it.
yeah, I've got like six momentum, and I go triple City Rampage into an Armor of the Ape, and I need to be very careful with the way that I'm playing my enhances because I have to play around his flip, and I have to play around his like I figure he's going to cancel my Armor of the Ape enhance with the League of Villains, and then he's got speed reduction in his stage, the damage reduction there. So it was very hard for me to think through. And so looking back on it, I did play pretty. I think that was the round I played slowest out of the
Mm.
entire time in St. Louis. Was just trying to figure out how to break through. I ended up winning off of that one Armor of the Ape through Triple Flask and League of Villains and a ready stage. I ended up still getting it to like 25 for 25. But it took
Sick.
like that
Taste of
one
his own
attack.
medicine.
It was probably a 16-minute long attack, honestly, with both of us thinking through when to press certain buttons, but we probably pressed 50 plus buttons on the one attack.
It's funny you mentioned that too, because that's like Armor of the Wolf is like a perfect example of like, okay, well, if you hate Elder Toguro a lot, like this is a very playable card on all of its symbols. The Elder Toguro deck is not like unhittable. A big part of its defense is reducing damage to a negligible amount, but it doesn't have like momentum hate in that list. It doesn't necessarily block literally everything. There's like no omni blocks, there's no unbreakable, right? So like when I play it, when
Yeah.
I see other people play, every version of Taguro, like a big part of the game plan is taking damage and gaining it back. So, Armor of the Wolf is like perfect because they have to do the swap. If they do the swap before you use any of the keywords on it, the keyword just makes up for the swap. And so it can be tough to sequence if you have to use both EX and powerful. That's where you like fall into the trap. But if you just pump the damage up high enough that the EX will even it out and kill you, then they have to swap it, and then you just powerful instead of EX, and everything's fine. So Armor of the Wolf is another great example of like this is a shift in a metagame where like maybe you don't want to play this style of game, but your character should maybe just use Armor of the Wolf if this is the one matchup you can't beat, right?
Yeah, that's part of what has me kicking myself is that I felt like I didn't have a lot of defense if he got the combo off. Um, and so if he built the sports festival champ early, got the combo off, like I was just gonna die. But in terms of offense, Amajiki, especially the with City Rampage and Monster Aggression, it was like I'm giving stats and congruence everywhere. Black Abyss, Monster Aggression,
Yep.
City Rampage, yeah, Armor of the Wolf, Armor of the Ape, like I'm all of my stats are coming speed and damage at the same time. Uh, so I felt like I had the answer on offense,
Yeah, that's
just
another
no defense answer.
yeah, that's another great point. Like Black Abyss is great at killing Elder Toguro. You get it to like a threatening amount of damage, but they can't afford to swap yet because you have more damage. And then you just start pressing like +2, +2, +2, +2, unflip +2 plus. Like there's never a time where the swap starts to make sense. So that stuff is really good into them. The other thing, this is actually the original tip I had, which I missed completely because I remembered the Tower 2 one. You pretty much just beat that deck if you play Evade and Copy and Incredible Display. It's just all big mids, and none of the cards in the deck currently answer Evade and Copy. And like Travis was so happy. I'm not gonna say lucky because I think it's really like Barlow's fault, right? But like Travis was super happy to be able to beat the All Rodan because he knows Evade and Copy exists, but Barlow only had two copies and no way to like recycle it. So if you're playing like Overhaul with Incredible Display, you become like immune to the Elder Toguro combo deck.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's the biggest thing the life symbol has going for it is that the life symbol gets a 0 low block and a 1 high block on 0 diffs that are both check sixes, so you can pick up with gift returned, and then you can block with them and pick them up with Incredible Display, and you get like evade and copy, block and pick up. But basically, the life symbol feels like a lot of its defense is running through Incredible Display and just getting to pick up some amazing foundation blocks.
Yeah, and then with Overhaul specifically, you get to bank it. So it doesn't even clog up your hand. You don't have to hold, you don't have to telegraph, I'm holding this evading copy forever either. So, it's there is play into it, and it's the genius of recognizing like no one's on this deck, right? Like no one's talking about it, no one's prepping for it. One Punch Man, the True Form All Might, same thing, right? Like it was super scary. People were like, this is gross, it's toxic, it's and then it needed to evolve. It needed to iterate to even stay relevant because people were like, oh, I could just play evading copy. Same card even. Same card, block on an 8, that's too risky. Okay, well I'll just start playing what was the reset at the time? You're So Obvious. You can play You're So Obvious, right? Bring it down and then reduce the speed. So you could play the Reluctant Icon thing to like, make it so he can't play Cremations, and then that's a lot like so there was a lot of interactivity. It's just you get like one tournament where nobody's prepared for it. Nobody knows what you're doing. Andrew Porat in his interview with the Chamber said he got absolutely bamboozled in game 1 or game 2 because Travis did 2 Twisting Azures with none of the combo. Like no Sports Festival, like just pumped them both too fast to be blocked, and then pumped them both to be like 11 damage. And that's like an insane amount of numbers to think about to like beat over Rodan. But we saw him do it on stream against Barlow, so I fully believe it's possible, right? And then Andrew going into game 3, because he didn't see like what the deck is doing, or game 2, whatever it was. I don't know how many they played, but like the next game, he's like watching the discard pile fill up and there's no attacks. And he has no clue what this deck is actually trying to do.
Yeah, and the other thing is like the Sports Festival champ says the damage can't be modified.
Right.
You can still use Fashion Icon, Defending Pageant Queen, Barrier Shield, Childhood, whatever the Rinku 2-diff is. Where you discard momentum, takes the speed to 0. Like,
childish tendencies or whatever.
Yeah, we still get you still have lots of answers in terms of speed resets. You can still Cape of No Return it. You can still Genkai's Guidance it. You can still Run Away.
Right.
It's not like, oh no, the Sports Festival champ is there. There's no hope. You got to play some speed resets.
Oh, it's Childlike Appearance is the Rinku one. I had to
Childlike
know.
Appearance.
But yeah, so he's got answers for answers, but that's like a good deck, right? That's just how good card games work. Like, you don't deserve to beat it just because you have Runaway. Like, he gets to beat your Runaway. He gets to Showdown. League of Villains gets to exist as a one of. Like, so I think it has like a cool back and forth. I love that it's playing the game in like a different way. But the only thing that would really nettle me about it is you draw 7, non-attack cards, you discard an asset, and then kill me. Like, that doesn't feel great when everyone else has to draw. Even the One Punch Man deck had to, like, do the first form to draw 3 more cards to, like, be consistent to see the one attack it needed. But I think the deck will struggle in the future because it is difficult to play defensively. I think people have to be scared of you like offensively, and now that they know what the deck does, they won't unless you play like a real offense to like punish them or like put the fear in them. Like I said, I played at my local qualifier. People played out their whole hand because they're like, I don't have a defense for the combo. If you draw it, you win. And then like I would draw like 24 damage, not 38, because I'm playing against only Byakos, because my life is just Byako now. Like, it's just so funny that like, um, it's very funny that like once you know what's happening, it's so different. It's just a totally different game.
Yeah, I lost game two because I thought Sports Festival Champ, like in the moment, my brain told me that it said the damage.
You thought penalties worked, but other reductions didn't.
I can't remember what it was. It was the damage. Yeah, I thought it said the damage cannot be modified, not that
Mm.
the damage can't be reduced. So Travis played a card first to add damage to it. It had like +9 damage to it. I could have broken Psyche'd, and I passed instead. And then he used the Sports Festival Champ, and then I said, "Darn it, I should have played Broken Psyche." And he looked up surprised and he said, "Oh, I missed that you had that. I definitely misplayed."
Right.
But in my mind, I missed the Broken Psyche because my brain told me it said can't be modified.
Modified, right.
And so I was waiting for the damage to get higher. And then I was going to use it and then see if he can pump the damage back up. Like that's where my brain was at. Was like
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no deck that's like unbeatable. There's so many things that go into actually playing and winning a tournament, right? Like, in that, I'm sure that doesn't happen if this is round one or two instead of, was this top cuts, right?
yeah.
Yeah, if this wasn't like hour 14 of the weekend of playing cards, like, I'm sure it's a different story.
Yeah, I mean, he could have just pressed it first. It was just a miss, and I think he probably still could have got the damage there, but it would have been up to uh, combined firepower milling enough non-foundation cards to make it happen.
Right. Well, yeah, but and it's one of those things where if he does the sports festival champion after it's at 2 damage, like even if he still gets there, it's obviously way harder, right?
Yeah.
You at least know that you tried. But yeah, I know a lot of people are kind of upset about the way that sports festival champion works. They think it shouldn't work that way. I'm kind of fine with it. I don't know. I take like a very open-ended approach when it comes to card games. I think the more specific you have to make the wording of your cards, it's usually not only like less impressive, it ends up being less intuitive. It ends up being like less obvious why a card is good, and that's like its own barrier for new players. If you ever look at Yu-Gi-Oh cards, you see how small the text is. More than half of that text is a restriction on what you can do with the card, how you play the card. They're almost all cards that search for another card and they have their own restrictions there. And so like 80% of that text is just like you can only do this once per turn. You can only search your deck for this type of card. You can only search your deck if you haven't searched your deck before. Once you search your deck, you can't search your deck with any other effects unless they have this keyword on them because you're playing this keyword. Like all this shit. Magic cards in standard that get played are like a wall of text that have 4 abilities on them, which is a lot for a magic card. Usually they have one. And they all are like super restrictive so that they are unplayable in other formats but are absolute bombs in standard. Like they interact so specifically with stuff. And I'm of the mindset that if you are good at balancing the game, then you don't have to put all these super duper specific restrictions. And a good example is there's a combo in Magic right now that I think is in the Modern Horizons. So it's not standard, but it's like a limited kind of thing, and it's something I've run into, so it might be standard. But it's a combo where you play a creature that says whenever your rival would lose health, they lose twice that much health. And it's like a 2 power creature, so it's statted to be a 4/4, right? It's like a 2 power, 4 health, cost 4, comes out as a 4/4. It's cute, right? It has 2 power, but it doubles its damage, and so anything you pump into it makes it stronger. That's the obvious use of it, right? That's not how you use it at all. You never attack with it. You immediately play a spell that says your opponent loses half their life. And then you double that, and it's all of their life. And that's the combo. And, like, it's one of those things where, like, nobody would ever look at Magic and go, well, this was unintentional and a loophole. Nobody would ever look at that combo and go, well, this was clearly not meant to deal my full life. So I'm a fan of stuff like that. As frustrating as it is to lose to like a 2-card combo, it costs enough mana to be justifiable. It's interactable in all the normal ways. It's on the colors that do those things. And I think that like Sports Festival Stadium or Sports Festival Champion having like exactly one character that can swap stats on its symbols and take advantage of this is actually cool and interesting. Disarming Glance you can make a better case for. People have like different issues with that card in general. I do think it's funny that you can add cards to someone else's hand, but not your own hand. I guess that could be seen as a loophole, but I don't really know. Besides that, I think the combo would still work. The dissolving disarming combo, right?
Yeah, the you just make the attack abort before it resolves, and now they can't. But now you can't add cards. Nobody can add cards to their hand.
Right, to their own
The rest
hand. So
to their
you
own hand.
right. So if you play disarming glance and then you use dissolving to add it to their hand, it's kind of considered a loophole because it doesn't just say players can't add cards to their hand. Players cannot play abilities that add to their own hand, right? So like I could see that being a little bit of a loophole, but I think even if you did like fix that, right? I think you can just play dissolving and then the response window for disarming glance doesn't disappear. So you would still just play disarming glance and then the attack still never resolves. So I don't think that even matters, like from a rules top down perspective.
I'm a big fan personally of the disarming glance combo. I think it's a neat trick. It glance has to flip itself, so if that ruins your whole turn, well, just play some defense and get to your next turn and try again. But
People have
I
been
don't know.
drawing too many
Personally, I'm a
cards
big fan.
anyways.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of coming around to your point on this, and that maybe we should just have these. That it's okay to have very, very power as long as there's interaction.
Right. I
Um,
mean, you can get all of these foundations flipped. It's not like a Byaku's ever going to let you resolve any of these combos on you like post turn 3. you know.
yeah, you can selectively destroy foundations.
Yeah.
You can commit down. You can freeze things down.
Aggro
A
control
big
has always been the name of this game since MHA launched. Like it's always been what are the decks that are the best at eliminating your resources, controlling them while playing a lot of attacks. So you're never without any interaction, I feel.
So do you feel let's say this weekend, do you think the UK players are they going to follow Oceania more or follow St. Louis more?
That's a good question. I think Hawks has been popular over there. Um, and I know Momo 3, I think there's like a Momo stand. I think Mike Hardiman has been like playing exclusively Momo whenever whenever it makes sense to. And so I know that there's like just some character loyalists. Dobby guy beat himself up because he like conformed to the meta instead of playing what he wanted. So like there's that. So I don't think they're gonna conform too much, but it does seem like the UK is always won by one of the decks that we think is the best right now. So like it would make a lot of sense if Rodan just wins the UK, right?
Yeah, Rodan's got to win one of them.
Yeah. Gotta live it. Well, I just hope it has combined firepower because I promise you, if Andrew Porat had combined firepower in his discard pile during his Top Cut match that went to the time limit, he would have won it. I promise you.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree.
If you
I
make me
don't.
discard a combined firepower, I'm still going to block with it. It's how you beat Tri-Gravity Beam. Tri-Gravity Beam has been like the most consistent card in Top Cuts. Like that's the card to look out for. Like more so than Elder Toguro, I'm more afraid of like any deck just playing Tri-Gravity Beam because it has the right keywords. Have you seen a Mina deck play Tri-Gravity Beam? It's actually wild.
A Mina 2 deck?
Yeah, because they have to like manage which of their attacks stay face up to make it work. So like they keep, like I've seen players like mess it up, but it's a ranged attack that rips a card out of their hand, and you don't necessarily like flip all your attacks to get it off. But once Mina knows your block zones, her burn effect becomes insane. Like once she knows she's gonna deal half damage, she can still burn you a lot. And Mina too has been popular in Oceania and popular in the UK in the past. I'm pretty sure what's his name? Brett Pendragon we were just talking about. He's like a huge Mina fan. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him break out Mina too in this regional. Because last time he was like not happy with his performance playing the meta. And Mina 2 is like perfectly fine right now on a different builds. So she plays the best, what I think is the best attack in the format right now, Tri-Gravity Beam. She plays that just fine. She plays one of the best attacks, which is I just lost the name. It's the 4 low for 3. The double trouble guys. The Echo. What's it called? What?
Tray size.
Tray size. She plays Tray size like a motherfucker. Yeah. She's one of the best Tray size decks. Shape-shifting Impalement is also like kind of a scary Echo that oh no, that one doesn't have the right keyword. She's not a Fury, she's a ranged. But still, the Lizard Tail Splitter, that one's ranged. And it fills up your card pool in like an annoying way. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Mina 2 do super well, but like the UK has been won by like what? Momos and overhauls, and I think an Ojiro one when Ojiro was popular, right? Or maybe that was like like Eraserhead one when Eraserhead was the best character. Like it's just whatever is like super top tier, right? Is usually what's winning UK.
Yeah, we had.
I might be wrong.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised to see some overhauls make an appearance again because we saw. Who did it? Mitchell did a deck profile with Phil Birch, who won a big event in Canada with his life overhaul list. But speaking of Mina 2, George was testing Mina 2 quite a bit before he switched to Void Rodan. And he was playing a long game version of Death Mina 2, and he was playing a button collector version.
Right.
And
I love button collector.
I wish I could share the picture I took, but I took a picture of one of his card pools against me, and he had like, I think it was like 14 cards in his card pool by the end of it. It was just crazy. And then today he said, let me go pick it up. He said, I think he was talking about button collector Bert Holt.
Okay.
And then Pippa replied, days since George has mentioned button collector, 0.
Yeah, I'm telling. I was telling you that's the cards I wanted to add to the Elder Toguro list because you get to form and play Falling Heel Strike out of your discard pile at any time, and then you get to just draw like a million cards. I don't know. I made a whole video about button collector being my favorite card from Critical Role, and yet I've played like a criminally low amount of decks with it just because once I got turned on to the Falling Heel Strike combo with it, I've just like focused in on Death. And Death has been one of those symbols where like the characters that do really well on it play like their own way, Like Mina 2 plays her own way. Younger Toguro plays, just like all the draw cards and like has his own, style of just stringing things out, and fell off once they got rid of Mop Strike and like nerfed him a little bit. And then Elder Toguro on Death is like a totally different deck from all of those. So the and then Shigaraki was also good on Death, and he plays like different cards with like different styles of defense. So Death has been like all over the place as far as like defensive strategies, and has been one of the better symbols at having different attack lineups and different styles. So that's been really cool, and that's been like occupying a lot of my time with looking at Button Collector. So it'd be cool if that one takes off.
Yeah, I just don't like, we see a lot of Mina 2 lists just go for the aggression, kind of similar to the younger Toguro lists last format. You saw a lot of just all out aggressive ones, and then later on you see some ones willing to play defense and play a longer game and just scale. And I think Death Mina 2 can do something similar. And then the other deck that I wanted to bring up that if I was playing in another major competitive event this format, I think would be the deck I play. Uh, Maybe the coolest deck, in my opinion, to come out of St. Louis were the all Rodans,
Yeah.
Barlow and Calvin, playing this all mid Rodan. They're allowed to play all mids because they give speed too, so that
Yep.
they can combat the combined firepower decks. And they're using Big Fist Bash and Double Jumbo Fist and Absorbed Energy Spirit Strike. The 2x Spirit Gun Mega is very, very neat. Um, just a really cool attack lineup, in my opinion. And if I was going to play another event, I think that's what I would sleeve up, is do some testing. I don't know where I would fall. I think Barlow's playing like a 70 something card deck. Calvin was like 64 or something. Like
Yeah.
I think they were like 10 cards different. Um, but like fundamentally the same idea behind it. But that seemed to me like the innovation, at least for the Rodan, is that it seemed like on par with the Void Rodan builds.
Again, I think if you're looking at the Void Rodan lists that don't have combined firepower, I think that I think the all symbol version's strictly better. The all symbol version's more proactive. It flips your rival's foundations. It has significantly better deadlock, which is just a place you're going to find yourself as Rodan a lot. It's just combined firepower in this specific format, is handling threats. And again, like we've seen it was integral to the Elder Toguro combo as like an offensive piece. Um, it I don't know. It sets up like. There's so many attacks where I use a combined firepower because I have like a +2 on top of my discard pile, and I end up with a +4, and I don't care how much damage I give the attack. I'm now blocking it, right? So, I do think that the all symbol version is way less intense to play. It's like you don't have to do as much of the void version I like is similar to Andrew Porat's, right? Like I love the Titan Cliff in it because building pass through walls is insane right now. Like literally, I just can't use an asset against that deck. Like every time I play against it and I have a Knots Flask out, if I pass the turn, their first enhance of every turn is build pass through walls. If I have a cape out, their first enhance is build a pass through walls, right? So like that is absolutely insane. They have hackers on Void too, but you have that on all. So like it's not as big of a deal. So the biggest deal to me is I don't know what the all symbol does against discard, but I know what Void does against discard. It uses combined firepower and it uses ultra regen. So the all symbol doesn't really have like the heat into Tri Gravity Beam, but the all symbol version is absolutely great. Like if you want to play Rodan at your locals, you should 100% play the all symbol version because you won't be there for an hour. We had in the same round where my story from earlier, where we took like an hour to play 2 games as Toga versus Elder. A Rodan mirror finished in like 25 minutes because it was the all symbol version.
Yeah, maybe that's what, like, it just seems fun to me. It seems a little more aggressive on the offense side. But yeah, probably a little bit too few of answers to be as consistent as Void, where you get Barrier Shield and Combined Firepower to add in.
Yeah, like the all symbols offense is way better. Don't get me wrong, like way more proactive. But you know, it with a character like Rodan who's so good, you don't have to be proactive. So I value all the miniature tech over the ability to delete target rival with a focused attack. I can't say funny punch.
Yeah. So we've got those, and then we also had Justin just barely miss out on top cuts with his air version of Rodan. So
Which
I
I told
imagine
him he
Rodan will
would.
be I imagine he'll be prevalent in the UK, but there's no telling what build is going to do the best. Is it going to be all air or void? Seems to be very, very strong on all of them. Uh,
Actually, most likely, King Ghidorah is probably going to win the UK
why is that?
because it's more like Overhaul, and it's more. It feels more similar to Overhaul and Eraserhead, where it's like asking you how far do you want to overcommit. Like Rodan, it's kind of obvious, you know, like if you're going to overcommit or not, because the question is purely a number, like it's just speed, right? So like the number usually is just how many cards can I block. King Ghidorah also has built-in defense against Tri-Gravity Beam because you can remove the card from your hand and then block later. So you can like get out in front of it, which is something I don't know if you remember. Momos used to have to do that against Giros because they would play flash attacks towards the end. So like good Momos would just go pick up the +1 high block early, and ones that didn't would get punished, right? So like Overhaul in like a similar situation, but like reverse, where you like want to get rid of your whole hand and then do the enhance, so you can like sequence on them and like mess them up in certain ways with like flash attacks. That doesn't work with Tri-Gravity Beam, right? So I think that King Ghidorah might actually have the edge, just from what we've seen in the past from the UK. But I would love to be surprised. I would absolutely love to see something like the Elder Toguro that we've like never really seen before just come out of nowhere. Like I want to see a Toga deck that copies Mineta and debuilds somebody twice every turn or something.
That's what George said he would be playing if he could go back to St. Louis. He would have been
Really?
off void. He would have been off void Rodan and on evil Toga 4.
Oh, okay. I'm like that's wild. Toga 4. Yeah, but I would love
Well,
to see
I
that.
mean, just copy Mineta 2 and take the speed of that Twisting Azure to 0.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you
Abs-
got your answer right there. I think um, when I played Toga 4 in St. Louis, I think that was my worst matchup. I just got lucky that he checked threes every single time he tried to play an attack against me. So I got kind of bailed out. But him getting access to Mineta 2 for defense and just zeroing out my Armor of the Wolves and things was nasty. And then I had to be very careful not to overextend because he was going to be woman on offense.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say being able to be Mineta on defense and someone else on offense is so strong, right? And because even though we know that like Mineta is like a really obvious pick, I'm pretty sure my light keeps short circuiting. Oh well. I shouldn't even mention it, but most people are just gonna listen to this anyways and have never noticed. But being able to be Mineta 2 defensively and like a way better character offensively is like super tight. And I feel like even if that's like the bread and butter of your deck, I feel like if you play Toga 4 on stream, like into top cuts, people are gonna love it because it's just gonna be doing something unique no matter what. And that's really what the game needs right now, and that's why I like this Godzilla format so much. Because even before the Elder Toguros came out, even before seeing like, I mean, even your Amajiki was kind of different, right? Like City Rampage Amajiki, I don't think was something else others were doing. Even though Amajiki has been like historically very 5 diff dependent. I don't know if the other Amajikis and Top Cuts were like
No,
playing it.
yeah, we were very different. Carson was on a 94 card Amajiki list.
Right.
Uh, Calvin was on a all out Black Abyss list. Command Pigeon Flock.
Yeah, he
Filled
was
in.
playing, and this is not a knock, but he was very much playing like a Yu Gi Oh style deck, where it's like if he draws his best cards, you are not stopping him. Like if Calvin draws like his best hand, I don't think any deck prevents him from winning. You
Yeah,
know,
our first when we looked at each other's lists, the first thing I'm thinking about is, okay, where are the runaways? Where are the Genkai's guidances? You know,
right?
the actions that are going to stop my Armor of the Wolves. And I realized they're not in the main board and they're not in the
No,
sideboard.
no. He's just trying to like do his combo on you going first.
Yeah, yeah. So our games kind of came down to that. Who built up to their big thing first?
Yeah, it was like his list was very much like it had I think four friend of animals but one steaming sphere. Like it was so much more invested in getting Black Abyss than like any excuse me anything else. So like it was very funny to see like a lot of people would consider it like a first draft of an Amajiki, but like that's because your first draft is like just the most important stuff, right? It's just like the most efficient version of your win condition. And that's how I felt when I saw his list. I was like, my immediate sensibilities were like, where's all the technology? And it's like, I don't know, man. Actually, if you just draw like, if you just build two friend of animals and have two Black Abyss, like you just delete like any deck. So, like the Amajikis being different is very very cool, but it's still a character we've already seen, right? Jester making the top cut was cool, but it was using like a combo that was pretty known, even though it was nerfed. But it was great to see like the results for it. So I would love to see something that's like totally out there. I know Kevin Broberg topped with Pony, but it was very much like a Earth Falling Skies good stuff Pony, which isn't like a again, it's not like a knock. It's just like how many times have I seen an Earth deck add +2 speed to a high attack, draw 8 million cards, and then survive with referee, jury, and
Yeah, it feels like the known best way to play Pony.
yeah, like the incredible display plus jury combo plus like you just block twice and soak one. I
Yeah, I
have you
thought one
seen
of the
the
coolest things was just throwing in the one Armor of the Wolf.
yeah
It was only one Armor of the Wolf in there, but just since Pony has four enhances on face,
yeah.
it's cute as a as a win condition. I'm positive it probably won him a game at some point.
Oh, for sure. And you can like make the zone a low, like a low armor of the wolf is like super obnoxious, right? That's why I've thought about Zeru's Flame with Pony because you get four enhances, so it's like stun four if you can do them all. But then you've probably played it on an 8 if you're clearing a card from your card pool, so not that good. But have you seen the Tetsu thrashing ponies?
No, but
It's like
Joseph Zimmerman say he started out with that and then he switched it back to the other
my,
Earth version.
my local's been on it because it is like theoretically one of the best ways to beat through Rodan, right? Is even with combined firepower, like you can get to a point where you are clearing Tetsu's enough. Like basically, if you have enough counters, instead of like stringing into it, you just are like, play the Tetsu, discard my hand down. Way harder without snack time, and like it's way more difficult to adjust your counters with your hand size. Whereas the Earth Highs deck plays draw a card, draw a card, draw a card. When you discard a card, draw a card, draw a card, and is just doing more and more and more. But I like the idea of the Tetsu thrashing build a lot, and I'd like to see like maybe it's missing something, but I'd love to see that one come out because I think that once you can like loop the thrashings and you get to like check the top card of your deck and you like theoretically will never check bad. With enough counters, you should kill anybody, right? So I'd love to see something like that. But it would probably take you like 40 minutes to get enough counters to only do Tetsu thrashings and discard your hand enough.
To constantly loop them. Yeah,
Yeah.
the other thing is the order symbol did pretty well between Ryan on Hawks and Zach on Bionic. Uh, I would like to see Kuryu
Yeah.
top cut UK. I guess that's my character that like I'll be rooting for. is Kuryu to make it. I'd like to see an order Kuryu find its way into tops. And then the most played character, or this maybe it was the second most played character. I think it was the first though. Toga 3 only had one make it into top cuts.
The deck is
in
fraudulent.
I have to think that Toga will see better play in UK, or at least a better.
Do you want my hot take on the Toga deck performance?
Okay, do you think it's overrated?
I think it's overrated for the sole purpose of like remember how earlier I said the tech pieces that you have against Amajiki don't really work against him? I think they do work against Toga. I think people being over teched for Amajiki momentum is excuse me. Is hurting the Amajiki tech is hurting the Togas. Because discarding one momentum from Amajiki is like not a big deal if he played 3 attacks and hit you with 2 of them. But discarding one momentum against Toga when she just added a Black Abyss to it is like a way bigger deal. And I have not been threatened by Togas who get 1 Black Abyss, and a little threatened by Togas that get 2 if I'm, already like damaged and like not at full health. But Amajikis who get 2 Black Abyss for free just absolutely steamroll me. So, and I can't stop them. Like, I cannot stop them from adding it to their stage. So that's my kind of a little bit of a hot take, because the stunning gun game plan is still so good, but I think people are over teched for momentum hate, and that's hurting Toga.
Yeah, I could see that.
Oh, and the what's the other card that just came out? There's a card that blocks a weapon on a 0 that like Rodans get access to. It's a mid block. It's like size reduction, I think.
Yeah, size reduction.
Yeah, so like that card is definitely a 3 of in my sideboard. It's like 3 Will of Steel, 3 size reduction, and then it's like another cape, a Genkai's, another cancel, another, like the last combined firepower. And so like I don't know, I think she just kind of suffers from a few tech pieces that should hurt other people but don't slow them down as much.
Interesting. Well, I think okay, last thing and then I got to run here.
Yeah.
But been debating with this amongst the team a little bit, because in my opinion, St. Louis was the most fun event since I've been playing the game. I think every single round I played against a different character. There are so many viable strategies right now in the format that you can't tech against all of them. You have to pick and choose where you're going to win and where you're going to lose. You can play control characters, you can play aggro characters. There's just lots of different play styles that are viable right now. In my opinion, St. Louis felt like the healthiest meta we've ever had. And then I've got other members on the team who completely disagreed, said it was a very unhealthy meta. It just was beneath the surface, right? Like there's actually only 3 or 4 viable characters. It's just that not everybody's on them, but everybody should have just been Rodan, King Ghidorah, Amajiki. And it was more unhealthy than maybe it seemed on the surface. Because that's something I'm worried about with Attack on Titan, is that are we in the healthiest meta ever? And now we're introducing all these characters, and are we going to move away from that? Whereas other team members think this actually wasn't that good, and Attack on Titan characters are going to help it diversify. So I don't know. I'd love to get your stance on that, because in my opinion, I really, really enjoy this Godzilla meta.
I've been a big fan. Not everything. So like, here's the thing: is I think it's tough. I think people think they're being objective when they're not a lot of the time. Because like, I can objectively say that there's things I really don't. Well, that's subjective if I say I don't like it, but like, I can objectively say like this is one of the healthiest formats, even if the best strategy is my least favorite of all time. So like, I think that's something that I wish I could impress upon people more, because when it comes to being critical, right? When it comes to critiquing, it's very important that you separate um things that are like a personal taste and things that you think are generally overall healthy for the game. I can't stand discard decks. I think Tri-Gravity Beam is corny as fuck. I think it's like super lame to lose to, and I think it causes games to slow down a lot because now cards I play, like foundations I build, hold so much more weight. That being said, discard strategies have sucked for so long, have, been an answer to overly defensive strategies and like overly turtly strategies. It's a great way to punish Rodans who aren't playing combined firepower, you know? And so, and again, I feel like they gave you the answer. My biggest beef is that the answer shares two symbols with it, maybe all three. So I don't like that combined and Tri-Gravity share symbols, but they did give you like an answer to it, right? They gave you like a way to block Tri-Gravity even if you get your hand discarded. So as far as like objectively looking at it goes, I think you're correct in assessing that the gap between characters at the top of the format might be bigger than it has been in the past, but we still have what, 6, 7 unique characters. Let me count really quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 out of 16 unique characters. No more than 3 except Rodan. Okay, Rodan has 4. Like, comparing to other card games, we're still objectively more diverse. Comparing to older formats of regionals, we're at least as diverse as a lot of them. And if, the ones that it's less diverse than, it's only by like 2 characters, right? It's only by like 2 slots. And the biggest thing is that even within those characters, they have legitimately different strategies. Whereas before, you would see an air deck and a chaos deck and another air deck. And unless that chaos deck was like exactly Tokoyami, it's just a 1.3 million volts deck. Like there's never been an air deck that topped that wasn't like hardcore relying on sound waves and or 1.3 million. And the Jiro decks are like so far removed, right? Like they're so far removed from being like the other air decks. So like, I don't know. I feel like objectively you can say it's the healthiest while also hating things about it. And I would much more believe that you just really don't like the way that Ghidorah and Rodan and Byakko, like there's no Byakkos in tops, is absolutely shocking to me. They all seem to have like a huge amount of ties, and like their draws are coming from their opponent not knowing what to do without a face up stage and no one telling them to play faster. Like Byakko exists as like an amazing way to beat Ghidorah. Like it's so easy for him to make everything 10 damage, and Thunderous Roar will eventually just delete a counter for every time you commit it. Like it's it versus Barrier Shield. So like even outside of our top 16, I think that there's healthy characters that I can't, well, I shouldn't say healthy because Byakko's also kind of like on my short list of things that annoy me. But again, like objectively, I don't think Byakko existing is so bad. I just hate playing against it. But that's a good thing because I'm a more traditional control style character and or player, I should say, and Byakko is the deck that punishes that. Like he is the check and balance for it. So I think that players who came back thinking that we're in the unhealthiest meta ever are accurately identifying the best characters in the format, like objectively, but then subjectively just disliking them more than others.
Yeah, I could see that.
I could agree that like we have some of the most disgusting strategies available, but I would also recommend you play cards like Runaway. I would also just recommend that you like play Koenma's task to cancel Showdown. Like I don't know what else. I don't know what else to tell you. Like there's, if your favorite character is not working out, like that's not a representation of the metagame. If you don't like the characters that are representing the metagame, like That's rough. That's really rough. But you can't tell me that this is a less healthy meta than Acceleration Kick Endeavor from Worlds. You can't tell me that this is a less healthy meta than Jiro versus Fourth Kind. You can't tell me that this is a less healthy meta than anything that involved Asui, Tokoyami, or Momo 1. You just can't. You just can't.
Yeah, I think where it's coming from is probably just that I think we have, especially with Godzilla, really jumped up in terms of power level. And so everybody is doing things that are better than strategies before, but we still have a really nice diversity of strategies. So I was a big fan personally of St. Louis, and I'm nervous going into Attack on Titan. I'm nervous that, like, while I'm really hyped for Attack on Titan, I'm nervous that it's going to mess with things because I really like where we are too.
Yeah.
Like I'm excited for change, but I also don't want any change.
I'm excited that they're trying new things, but I haven't seen them be impactful in a way. Because my biggest fear is that Attack on Titan flops, and the best thing that we get out of it is maybe characters, and those characters are just the best walk the dog character. You know, like that's my biggest fear is that all the best characters are just like the what's his name, Burholt, the guy who adds stuff to momentum. Is he not just the craziest, like objectively best vast hybrid chimera kraken user of all time? Like you block it, it goes to momentum now. You block it, you don't block it, it goes to momentum like anyone else. Like that's the easiest way to lose a game is that you block a vast hybrid chimera kraken, and that gives two speed to the armor of the wolf. You know what I mean? Like it's stuff like that that I think I'm afraid of the most because it looks like Attack on Titan is designed around putting you in a position where it doesn't really matter what you do. You didn't have the out preemptively. You know, you're in a position where your opponent transforms and they ruin half your stage, and you know, you lose like flat health, you get burned for flat health, and your opponent has 4 attacks they can play in their discard pile. You know, and it just doesn't matter what you did up to that point because you never drew a card that was going to unflip 5 foundations. That card just doesn't exist, right? So,
Yeah.
but that being said, I don't want to, we can't get into it now because we got to cut this off. We're right at the 2 hour mark. But I would say my final thoughts are I would say this format overall is a lower power level than most, but that's because there's so many cards that are a high level. You know what I mean? Like to me, when I hear a high power level format, I think of games ending quickly and decisively with, you know, low interaction. When I think of high, because that's just how it was described to me for Magic. Like a high power level in Magic is playing a 12 cost creature on like turn 3. And that 12 cost creature makes your opponent exile, you know, remove from game half their deck. And that's what it does,
Right.
you know, like a high power level in Magic is like on turn 2 you have a combo where your opponent has to discard a card, and then if they discard the wrong card, you get to play that card for free. And on turn 2, the only cards in their hand are like the 12 cost cards are in a combo on turn 3, you know? So like to me, the highest power level format we ever had was like right when Kirishima got like banned out, and it was decks like Tokoyami and Asui who were just untouchable. You know, they just, you know, the frog lashing was still around. I think this might have been before you were playing because it's like right when set 2 like was about to
Yeah, I
drop.
started playing 2 weeks before Frog Lashing got banned.
Yeah. So like right at the end of frog lashing it had to be the most powerful because you know, we had tongue whip, we had frog lashing, and it just didn't matter. There was no cards to clear your card pool. Struggling with studies didn't exist yet, you know, like, and the struggling just made that deck better, anyways. And there was nothing you could do. So, like, while Walk the Dog is objectively like more powerful than most set 1 attacks, and does a great job of filling in like the role of 1.3 indiscriminate. 1.3 didn't require momentum. It didn't have another interaction point to be big. You know, it didn't have the counterplay of destroying your committed foundations. So like, there's just no shot that this is the highest power level format because your cards require additional investment, right? They require additional synergies, and games go longer than turn 2 all the time now because you have cards like Cape of No Return, which is a very powerful card, a higher power level card, but all it does is serve as a check and balance to what would otherwise be, cards that end the game. So, that being said, that's a great discussion for like another time over like what is a powerful format, but I think we're just in a healthy mix of checks and balances, and people are upset because either their symbol might not have access to the right one. It feels a little rock paper scissorsy. You don't draw the card. Like, I can't tell you how many Elder Toguro games I played in one day where I just did not draw a sports festival champion, and I did not have the reps that Travis had, so I did not understand like where to go from there. Like, how do I combo out? If I have to swap. Constantly I missed, or like I would mill like avoiding the conflict too early, and I'm like, oh well, now if I swap it, I won't get the damage back, right? It'll just be too fast but not enough damage. So there's lots of little things, I think, in this format where on its face we're seeing like super powerful cards that are better than ever before, and they have bigger numbers printed on them, and they do more disgusting things, but they have more interaction points that you can also ruin them with. So there was really nothing you could do against Indiscriminate Shock except just die or block.
Yeah, that is something that I think we have yet to see with Attack on Titan. Is the extremely strong defensive stuff.
Yeah. Well,
we'll see if there's enough of it for the Spotlight format.
Yeah. The main thing I'm waiting for is I'm waiting for the cards that cheat out the high difficulty attacks, because there's no way that they nerf Shishi Wakamaru but also have like no way to make these cards more playable. There's just no shot. So I'm waiting for the card that's like, if you've had 5 attacks get blocked, play a Titan card from your discard pile for free. That's what you get for blocking 5 times, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I think the forecheck. Well, I guess it's a whole.
That's another podcast.
We'll be back together in like 27 hours for the UK regional.
That's true. It's less than a day away. It's gonna be 1 a.m. my time. I think 3 p.m. your time. Or that's when the
4 a.m. But I'll have to be ready by probably 3:30 a.m.
Yeah, that's when our call time is at least. So so we'll be back for that. If you guys are watching the UK regional, make sure you say, hey, what's up in the chat. We always love to interact with you guys in the community as a whole. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Orange Card, Blue Card podcast. Do you have any parting words for the people at home, David?
No. My channel's Let's Talk UVS. Go sign up for the September 7th event. Capped at 64 players. I think we're only at 42 right now. So there's still 22 spots left for people. We have more than a month to go and sign up. I'm working with the playmat artist now. I finally got on that job, and he said he's very excited to do some Attack on Titan playmat art. So yeah, go sign up September 7th.
All right, guys, make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment on your favorite part, and we will see you hopefully very soon. This should be out before the UK regional. If not, I fucked up. So we'll see you all very soon, hopefully on Universe's main Twitch channel. So don't miss out. Don't forget about the webcam championship, and let us know if you're going to be in Atlanta, because that's going to be the next event you and I are both attending, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Awesome. See you guys.